Most people spend their whole life trying to escape debt. The wealthy spend their life using it. Same tool, completely opposite result. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why a wealthy person will borrow money they don't even need, how the tax code quietly rewards them for it, and how one simple question separates the debt that builds wealth from the debt that quietly keeps you stuck. None of this is complicated. Nobody just explains it in plain English. So let's fix that. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The people with the most money are often the ones borrowing the most of it. Not because they have to, because they've learned that debt, used the right way, is one of the fastest tools to build wealth. And used the wrong way, it's the thing that keeps you running in place for decades. Debt itself isn't good or bad. It's just a tool. A hammer can build a house or break a window. The hammer doesn't care. What matters is what you point it at. Now, you've probably heard the opposite advice your whole life, that all debt is dangerous. Cut up the cards, never borrow a dime. And for high-interest consumer debt, that advice is exactly right. But applied to everything, it quietly holds people back because it treats a mortgage on an income property the same as a balance on a store card. Those are not the same thing. The wealthy don't fear debt, and they don't worship it. They sort it. Here's the one idea this whole video comes down to. Wealthy people use debt to buy things that put money in their pocket. Most people use debt to buy things that take money out of it. That's the entire difference. Things that pay you are assets. Things that cost you are liabilities. The wealthy borrow to buy assets. Most people borrow to buy liabilities and call it treating themselves. Everything else is just detail. Let's make that concrete because it only clicks with numbers. Imagine two people. Both borrow $50,000. Person one buys a new car. The moment they drive it off the lot, it starts losing value. They're paying interest every month on something worth less every month, and it never sends a single dollar back. That's bad debt. It feels like progress. But financially, it's a slow leak. Person two borrows the same $50,000 as a down payment on a small rental property. Now that property has tenants paying rent every month. That rent covers the loan, covers the expenses, and leaves a little profit on top. Same $50,000 of debt. One person is bleeding money, the other is being paid to hold it. But it goes deeper, and this is the part that quietly makes people wealthy. Say that rental is worth $250,000, and person two only put $50,000 down. They now control a $250,000 asset with $50,000 of their own money. Imagine the property rises just 5% in a year. That's $12,500 of growth. But they only invested $50,000, so their real return isn't 5%. It's 25%, because the bank's money is doing most of the heavy lifting. That's leverage. It's the engine underneath almost every real estate fortune. And to be clear, it cuts both ways. Leverage magnifies losses too, but used carefully. It's exactly why the wealthy reach for debt instead of running from it. And here's what makes that property especially powerful. It's quietly paying you in three ways at the same time. The tenant's rent is cash in your pocket. The property is slowly rising in value. And every month, a little more of the loan gets paid off. By the tenant, not by you. So you own more and more of the asset over time. Three returns stacked on top of each other, all kicked off by borrowing money the smart way. Most people only ever experience debt as a bill. The wealthy experience it as an employee. And you don't need a rental empire to use this. The principle shows up everywhere. A business owner borrows to buy equipment that lets them serve more customers. The equipment earns more than the loan costs. That's good debt. A student takes a loan for a degree that reliably raises their income for decades. That can be good debt, if the math actually works out, which is the part people skip. The pattern is always the same. Borrow to buy something that earns more than it costs. There's another layer the wealthy understand that most people never hear about. The tax code is quietly on the side of good debt. In many cases, the interest on a mortgage, a business loan, or money borrowed to invest can be tax deductible, meaning the government effectively shares part of the cost. Meanwhile, the interest on your credit card or your car loan? Usually not deductible at all. So bad debt doesn't just cost more up front. It gets none of the tax breaks good debt often does. The rules reward borrowing to build and penalize borrowing to spend. Most people just never look. Think about what that really means. If you can deduct the interest, the government is essentially chipping in on your good debt, lowering its true cost, while your bad debt gets the full price tag. Same dollar borrowed, completely different treatment, decided entirely by what you pointed it at. On the flip side, financing a vacation on a credit card at 24%, buying gadgets you'll forget about, carrying a balance month to month, that's bad debt. It's borrowing against your future self to buy something your present self can't really afford. So how do the wealthy actually decide? They ask one simple question before borrowing a single dollar. Will this debt make me more than it costs me? If the answer is a confident yes, they're comfortable using it. If it's no, or I'm not sure, they don't. That one question would prevent most of the debt that keeps regular people up at night. Picture it in practice. Someone offers you a loan at 8% to buy equipment for a side business. If that equipment reliably earns you 15, the answer is obvious. The debt pays for itself and then some. But a loan at that same 8% for a nicer car that earns you nothing? Same interest rate, completely different decision. The number on the loan only means something once you know what it's buying. There's a second thing they understand. The cost of the debt matters enormously. A loan at 4% that buys an asset earning 8% is a machine that prints the difference. A credit card at 20+% is almost impossible to out-earn, which is exactly why high-interest consumer debt should be the first thing you attack before any investing. Paying off a 20% balance is like earning a 20% return with zero risk. You will almost never find an investment that reliably beats that. So here's how to actually apply this. No rental empire required. Step 1. Sort your debts into two piles. On one side, debt tied to something that grows in value or earns income. On the other, debt tied to something shrinking or already gone. This alone changes how you see your money. Step 2. Kill the expensive bad debt first. High-interest consumer debt is an emergency, not a background expense. Throw everything reasonable at it. Step 3. Before taking on any new debt, run the rich person's question. Will this make me more than it costs? Be honest. It'll make me happy is a real answer, but it's not a financial one, so at least call it what it is. Step 4. If you do use debt to build, keep it boring and conservative. The goal is leverage you can comfortably survive if things go sideways. Not the maximum the bank will hand you. Wealthy people aren't reckless with debt. They're precise with it, because that's the real lesson. The wealthy didn't get access to some special kind of debt you don't have. They just learned to aim the same tool at things that pay them back. And to never aim it at things that don't. If this made debt make a little more sense, subscribe. The next one breaks down how compound interest quietly works for you, or against you depending on which side of it you're standing on. And a quick reminder, this is general education, not financial advice. Your situation is your own, so do your own research, or talk to a professional before making any big money moves.